you guys. My name is Louise. I'm an artist, and this is my sketchbook. I've used it since late 2020 or so for a little over a year. But I'm not really, an avid sketchbook user most of the time. I tend to use it in bursts. But now I've been using it somewhat regularly for the past 6 months or so. And there have been requests for a sketchbook tour ever since I briefly showed it in my home art studio tour video. I'll link that below for you if you missed it. But yeah, so here it is, my very first sketchbook tour. But since my sketchbook isn't actually finished yet, you can see it here, it's only about halfway, a little over halfway finished. So I thought that I would also show you a bit of what I like to do in my sketchbook. And right now that's pencil portraits is what I'm practicing right now. So you'll also get to see some pencil portrait practice. And before we dive in, let me just say that I'm not a fancy sketchbook kind of person. I'm an ugly sketchbook kind of person, just so you're mentally prepared. I use my sketchbook purely for practice and for sketching out ideas or trying new stuff. I don't paint in my sketchbook, and I don't try to create beautiful spreads or anything like that. Instead, you can expect a lot of half-finished drawings and sporadic note-taking and lots of smudges. So if you end up liking this video, consider giving it a thumbs up to help support this channel. It helps me out and I really appreciate it. Now, without further ado, let's see what we have here. So these are some notes that I took while taking a landscape painting class on Skillshare. Tried a bit of watercolor here, did not work out well at all. This is not a good sketchbook for water-based mediums. And here we have some magpies, some bird sketches, and some jackdaws, and some jackdaws bathing. I drew all of these from YouTube videos that I just paused at different frames to try to capture the gesture and the movement of these birds. And I really recommend that. You'll get much more dynamic and lifelike poses that way than if you were to only draw from photos. So that is a tip. A self-portrait, and here are some ink pen doodles where I tried to practice shading. An attempt at using ink wash in the sketchbook did not work well, that either. This paper really can't handle water at all. But still, I kept trying. This is water-soluble graphite that I just played around with for a bit. And I liked it, even though it looks really blotchy and uneven. And again, this is not a good sketchbook for water-based mediums at all. Practicing portraits, practicing foreshortened portraits, which is so difficult. And these are timed as well. I think I did this as part of an art prof tutorial. The channel Art Prof, really recommend it if you're a beginner artist or an experienced artist. A really great channel which has taught me so much, and I'll link it below. And then we have some more birds, my comfort zone. Some really ugly brush pen doodles that really just bled through and destroyed the paper. I'm not doing that again. This is actually a master's study of sorts. I basically just copied an illustration from an artist on Instagram that I really admire, because I'm really struggling with drawing with ink. I don't know what it is, I just can't seem to get the hang of it. So I tried to just really copy something that I thought looked stunning. And that's also a really good technique if you're trying to get better. If you have a role model or artist that you really look up to, just try to copy one of their works just for practice. And here's the Instagram handle. As you can see, her name is Abigail Harding, I think. I'm gonna link her account in the description as well. Check her out if you're into like gothic style comic book illustration. She's insanely talented. And this is an ink illustration that I made for one of the art courses that I took during the spring of 2021. And like I said, I really don't like drawing with ink at all, but this one I actually quite liked the look of it. Here's some illustration concept that I was trying out that I really couldn't get to work. One of those, you know, don't lift the pen type of self-portraits, which is kind of cool, I guess, but yeah, ink is just really not my thing at all. And yeah, this is a completely failed portrait of my fiance. He does not look like that at all. It's embarrassing. Anyways, another self-portrait, and then we're back to animals. Oh, some portraits first, but then we're back to animals. Then we have some birds, some pigeons, some seagulls, some penguins, a goose, just birds and some animals. As you can see, I'm also really adamant about writing the date because I really want to be able to track my progress. So I always start each session by writing out the date. Some more portraits, portrait practice, and then we're back to birds. And more birds. And some animals. This is a concept and a sketch for the final project of one of my art courses that spring. And I made this painting in acrylics later, and you can even see it in my home art studio tour as well. I'm showing it there. Birds, portraits. You can clearly see the pattern. So what I usually do with these sessions is that I just pull up one of my Pinterest boards I have a bunch of Pinterest boards with lots of reference photos for portraits or for birds or animals in general, and I just pull one of them up and I start drawing everything that I feel like drawing until I have filled like a page or a spread. That's usually what I do. I try to do that daily. Some more pigeons, a meerkat, some rooks, a full spread of squirrels. These are all drawn from a YouTube video that I really recommend that you watch. I'll put the link in the description. It's called I Rescued 4 Baby Red Squirrels. And it's made by a nature photographer and a filmmaker named Danny Connor. Go follow her channel. She's amazing. Crows. And some more birds. More portraits, more birds. This is a spread that I like a lot because I feel like I improved my line work a lot in it. My sketching style is usually pretty messy and sloppy, like you've seen in, I mean, you can see it here. It's messy. It's all over the place. It's not really structured. But here I really tried to be more deliberate with my lines and my shading. Try to keep my lines more straight and like uniform. And I like how it turned out. I like the look of these actually. Here I tried drawing with charcoal pencils. Another really bad idea in a sketchbook that's just going to smudge everything together. So I probably should have put something between these pages, but whatever. Now this sketch I really like. I'll probably turn this into a painting one day because I really like that pose and like the closed eyes, the white eyes. And then we have some more rooks and some more jackdaws, some more magpies. And now we're back to portraits. You probably recognize this guy. I struggled a lot with the eyes on this one. I don't know what it is. I can't seem to get them squinty enough. And so I do like a little bit of iterative practice here. Oftentimes what I need to do to capture the likeness in a portrait is to exaggerate the features slightly more than I'm comfortable with. It's as if the drawing needs to be a bit of a caricature in order to read clearly enough. At least that's my experience. And I mean, some people are just more difficult to capture than others, I feel. Back to birds. Around here is when I started working on my Skillshare class about sketching. So a lot of these are just me trying to work out the exercises and planning the demonstrations. I'll put the link to that class in the description. It's called Pencil Sketching for Beginners. And we're using animals as a reference in that class because I like drawing animals. And portraits. Here's when I really started getting serious about improving my portraiture. These are from a little more than a month ago. And since then, I've been sketching portraits almost every day. And as you'll see, there's quite a bit of improvement going on over a relatively short period of time. That's what happens when you really challenge yourself and you sit for longer periods of time. Some helpful notes and reminders to myself. Usually what I do when I practice like this is that I make a few attempts on my own and then I go to YouTube and I find a really good tutorial or just like a speed drawing or something, someone who's really good at it, and I watch how they do it and maybe make some notes to myself, and then I make another attempt and I make like 2 or 3 more portraits, and then I go back and forth like that. I'm especially focusing on the parts about portraits that I struggle the most with here, which are expressions, large eyes, and like open mouths with teeth showing, and trying to capture likeness. It's really difficult, but I try to use that exaggeration method here that I talked about earlier. Here's some more notes to myself. And my fiance was kind enough to offer me a few expressions of his own so that I had something to work with, something to practice with. And yeah, and there we are. I'm working out a kind of internal checklist for myself right now to help me approach portraits. I've tried various methods and approaches. Maybe you've heard of the Louise method, and yeah, there are many others where you start with like a wireframe almost to help you construct the head. These methods are very useful for beginners, and there are of course benefits to learning facial anatomy as well. But for me, who's already prone to overthink and overanalyze, none of these techniques has really helped me that much, I think. I've borrowed some tricks from some of them, but for the most part, what works best for me is just practicing a lot and learning from my mistakes a lot, and then working out my own process, my own preferred way of doing things. Maybe that's just what we naturally do as artists. We can borrow from and get inspired by other artists all day, but in the end, we do our own thing. I always come back to just basic drawing and painting fundamentals in my practice. Observe without jumping to conclusions. What does a chin look like is the wrong question for me. What does this chin look like is a better one. And I can only find that out by actually really looking at the image or the subject. And then keeping my lines straight and simple, carving out the form with just basic geometric shapes and planes and areas of light and shadow. And then it's just an iterative practice. I had this really bad habit early on with my portraits of always making the facial features too large for the face, because I knew that I needed to start with the head shape. That's like rule number one. Always start with the larger shapes. Don't just dive straight into, the eyelids or whatever. But then I've had a bad habit of always drawing the eyes and the nose and everything just too big in the face. But yeah, that's the kind of thing that you can only learn by making that mistake a lot. And so I can't really give any advice that's better than that. Just practice. Just do a lot of smaller studies. Instead of doing one large portrait, I would always prefer doing 4 or 5 tiny ones, because I feel like I learn the same amount of lessons from each one. So I actually learn a lot more in a shorter amount of time by drawing smaller. And now I think I'm just going to leave you with some relaxing music and the rest of this portrait sketching session. Feel free to draw along with me. There will actually be much more portraiture going on my channel this year. I really love painting birds and animals, but portraits are on a very close second place. I find portraits fascinating to look at and really satisfyingly challenging to draw and paint. My list of people that I want to make portraits of is miles long, so I better get to it. Subscribe or stay subscribed for more portrait adventures and tutorials and tips. bye.